Hey guys, it's Adrian, and today I want to share my thoughts after using the OPPO Find N2 Flip for a little over a month. Now, I do have a bit of a confession, which is that I've always viewed these type of flip phones as, inferior or less capable when compared to a traditional slab type of smartphone. But after I've used this as my daily driver for, a little over a month, I'm actually convinced that you're getting the best of both worlds with this and with very few compromises. So if you've shared similar thoughts as I have about flip phones, or if you're looking to get your first ever flip phone, let me explain why the OPPO Find N2 Flip is probably the best flip phone out there right now. In the package, you get the OPPO Find N2 Flip, a clear hard case, which is super handy to have out of the box to protect your new phone. You also have a 67-watt charger, a USB Type-C to Type-A cable, SIM ejector tool, and premium warranty card. The most standout feature for me with the design is how flat and compactly the phone folds. And this is what every single foldable phone should look like once it's folded. And this is all thanks to OPPO's new Flexion Hinge. Now, because of that hinge, you can actually angulate the screen from say 45 degrees to 90 to 110 degrees, and it stays in place. Whenever the phone is closed or folded, you can see that it's a pretty secure grip that I have holding it like this. Now imagine if you were gonna vlog, holding a phone like this is a much more comfortable position and natural hand feel than having it open like this. It's just more secure in the hand. And it's those type of small quality of life improvements that really give you the best of both worlds with a flip phone. I was also surprised at just how thin the phone felt in the hand once it's fully opened up compared to other flagship phones. And yes, I am comparing this to other flagship phones. Now, even though it's thin in the hand, it definitely didn't feel, fragile or like it was gonna break. Because it comes in at around 210 grams with the case on, it definitely has a bit of heft to it. With the phone folded up, you could see the main and ultra wide lens along with the flash LED light. You can also see that 3.26-inch vertical display, which makes it the largest vertical display on a flip phone to date. With the phone unfolded, you could still see the main and ultra wide lens along with the OPPO and Hasselblad logo at the bottom. The main screen houses the 32 megapixel selfie camera along with a pretty wide speaker grill. The right side of the phone has a tactile volume rocker along with a power button that doubles as a fingerprint sensor. The bottom of the phone has the Type-C charging port, speaker grill, and a SIM card slot which allows you to have up to 2 SIM cards, and that's a first for a flip phone. My Find N2 Flip comes in Astral Black and it has a bit of a matte finish which is good for resisting fingerprints, but it also does come in a moonlit purple color as well. Let's talk about that Flexion Hinge. So with this new generation of it, it really lives up to its reputation because it's barely there visually or physically when you're scrolling through. And I really don't notice it at all, especially compared to other brands where it's a pretty sizable indent or, kind of gap as you go over it. It's just not something that I ever think about because I really have to angle the phone at extreme angles on a dark background to even see it. It's just really refreshing to see a foldable phone come with a hinge like this where they've pretty much perfected it. This closes completely flat, and then when you open it up, you can't really tell that this is any special type of screen compared to a traditional slab phone. And again, the ability to just angle it at different angles to get different shots, or just to consume media, say you're sitting and studying, you just want the screen up, it's really great to have. One thing I wanted to point out about the hinge is that you're pretty much okay if you live in the range of 45 degrees to 110 degrees. And even if I shake it, it's pretty much staying in place. The only reason or the only way that you can really close it is if you're really, really, really aggressive with it, or say, a big gust of wind hits it, then yeah, it isn't friction well enough to handle that. But just if you have it opened up and, propped open on a desk or something like that, or you're taking a shot outdoors like I was, I didn't have a problem with it just, tipping over as long as I was within that range. So if this hinge is this good, why is everyone not using something like this? Is there a downside to a hinge like this? And not really, because OPPO has had this tested and it's rated for over 400,000 folds, which means that if you open and close your phone 100 times a day, it would take you 10 years till you got to 400,000 folds. And the other thing to note is that a lot of foldable phones, they have a tendency to suffer opening and closing in extreme temperatures. And this can be open and closed in temperatures of -20 Celsius to up to 50 degrees Celsius without any issues. So for those of you with hinge anxiety, you aren't going to have to worry about the amount of rated folds. But you may not need to open it and close it that much because you could just use the cover screen. By the way, guys, if you're finding this review helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help me out a lot, but let's get back into the video. So coming in at 3.26 inches vertically, it is the largest vertical screen on a flip phone. And that actually comes in handy at that size because you can really quickly check notifications to decide, do I need to open a phone, or, can I just leave it for later? And it also does help with battery life as well because, the battery is just powering a much smaller screen for you to just check a notification quickly. So to get access to the cover screen, you can unlock it with your fingerprint or by face scan, and both work really well. Once you have the cover screen unlocked, you can just swipe up to take a look at your notifications. And you can have up to 6 notifications just stacked vertically on here. And when you tap on each of them, you can get an idea or a quick preview of whatever it is. So say you open up an email notification, you would get a snippet of that email, but you do have to unfold the phone to see the entire email. You can't just scroll vertically from this cover screen, which is something I wish that they would change in software later. It would really expand on the versatility of the cover screen. What you can do though is if you get a message from, say, SMS, WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, you can reply to it with preset message templates, and you can also create your own. Now, I guess this is because they don't want to, force you to use a really cramped keyboard on here, but it would be good to have, some kind of option, maybe a swipe feature or, voice feature to do it. But for right now, we're limited to those preset messages. Anytime I pick a phone, I always look for a phone that has an always on display. And thankfully, this has an always on display, both on the cover screen and on the main inner screen. Another cool quality of life feature with the cover screen is just being able to swipe down, and you have access to these Android quick tiles. So say I'm driving, I could just swipe down, turn off Wi-Fi, turn on my data, turn on Bluetooth to connect to my car. That's really handy to have. But I wish they would go a bit further and let me pick the tiles that I want to, swipe down on, because I work remotely sometimes. I just want to swipe down, pick personal hotspot, use that for my laptop. So again, really small, issue, easy to fix with a software update. Hope to see that soon. The cover screen also comes in super handy if you want to take, selfies, because you're actually using the main camera on here, not the built-in selfie cam on the main screen. And this is just so handy because, it's easy to grip it like this. And if you're taking a group shot, you can also use this type of orientation and get a higher resolution photo. You can also orient the screen vertically or horizontally. So if you're gonna shoot a TikTok video or a YouTube Shorts video, it's just way easier to hold it like this for longer periods of time. I can also use the cover screen to give a live preview to any subject or groups that I'm gonna be shooting. So while the OPPO Find N2 Flip has a pretty capable cover screen, being an AMOLED screen and having up to 60 Hz refresh rate, I do wish that there was a bit more functionality in here, and I do hope it's coming in the future, because there's 6 preset widgets that you can go through. You can access photos, video, the weather, timer, voice recorder. That's all great to have, but I feel that, because of the aspect ratio, being a vertical screen, it just makes a lot of sense to take a lot of apps that are vertical in nature, like, TikTok, Instagram, and just scale it down. I almost forgot, but if you like interactive pets, you can actually choose from a range of pets. So I have the cat right now, but there's a dog, rabbit, a couple of other ones. And depending on what you're doing on the phone, say you're charging it, their animations change based on how you're using the phone. It's pretty cool. Camera performance has been great so far thanks to OPPO's Mirror Silicon technology. Now, but with the main camera, you have the option to enable, HDR, or you could turn that off, and you can also enable high-res photos or turn that off. There's also an AI scene enhancer icon that you could turn on, and whenever I turn it on, I noticed that it kind of boosted the contrast up and added a bit more saturation to the colors. I mostly kept the auto HDR feature on and the AI feature as well, and I was really pleased with the outcome of the images. Everything was rendered really nicely, nothing too overblown or overexposed, just really nice, clean, balanced shots. Night shots had pretty low noise using the main lens, but with the ultra wide, I noticed a little bit more noise. But if you're mostly going to be using this for social media and you're not pixel peeping, it's not really going to be an issue. If you'll be shooting video, you can shoot 4K at 30 or 60 frames per second. You can also do 1080p and 720p. Now, there is no optical image stabilization on this phone, and I thought that was going to be an issue, but it didn't really end up being an issue, because when I used the phone in the kind of camcorder mode, where you fold the screen and you hold it like a camcorder, I was able to walk. I kept it pretty stable, and one really cool feature that I love on here is that there's a built-in level, that lights up orange when you're level, and I was able to walk and pretty much keep that stable. The main screen is a 6.8-inch AMOLED screen that has a variable refresh rate of 1 to 120 Hz, like most flagship displays. It also comes in at 403 ppi with a peak brightness of 1600 nits. The screen is super fluid and fast thanks to that 120 Hz refresh rate, And because it's an OLED panel, you can expect, super great contrast, and it gets plenty bright as well. You can see that's the peak brightness. And again, when it comes to the crease, you really don't see it or notice it while you're using the display. It's just a flagship type of display. The OPPO Find N2 Flip is running a MediaTek Dimensity 9000 chipset. There's also 8 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM and UFS 3.1 storage. The battery is a 4300 milliamp rechargeable battery, which to date is the largest battery on a flip phone, and it's capable of 44 watts Super VOOC quick charging. There's a 50 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 32 megapixel selfie camera, which are all using Sony sensors. So I haven't used a phone with a MediaTek Dimensity 9000 plus chipset before. All my other phones have always been some kind of Snapdragon variant. But after using it for 30 days, I can say that there's no real difference between both chipsets for, real world use. Apps open quickly. It was easy to switch between them. I never felt like I had to wait and sit for something to open. It was just really fast, really fluid, exactly what I would expect from a flagship type phone. You can see from my Geekbench scores that the 9000 plus chipset scores pretty comparable to Snapdragon's newest offerings. So if you were ever considering a smartphone that had a Dimensity chipset, don't let that stop you. Playing Call of Duty Mobile on here was a super fluid and fast experience. I didn't notice any type of slowdowns or stuttering, and you could see that I was easily able to smoke my opponents. Playing Genshin Impact, I noticed that I had to drop the quality settings down to medium, and that's something where the Snapdragon chip has a little bit of an edge because I didn't have to drop it to medium to ensure smooth gameplay. However, that is a really demanding and taxing game for most phones, and as long as you're not playing something like that, this will easily run any other type of game that you throw at it. And it also didn't get too hot as well. I was able to easily get a day of use out of the phone, sometimes a day and a bit more, which is pretty impressive because this phone has a 4300 milliamp hour battery. And that's one of the compromises of having a flip phone, because most flagship phones have around a 5000 milliamp hour battery. However, that really didn't stop this phone from performing well, because if you can get a day of use out of a phone, that's pretty good. Now, for context, I always have Wi-Fi on, I always have Bluetooth on to connect to my smartwatch. I have location on, screen brightness is usually, around 50 to 60%. And one of the things that I never turn on any phone is the haptics or vibration. But on this phone, from day one when I experienced it setting the phone up, I just left the haptics on all the time. And the reason for that is because out of all the phones I've used, and some pretty big brands, this has the best haptic or feedback system out of any phone that I've used. It could get very aggressive or it could be really nuanced. It's just the best implementation of it that I've seen. Now, I also run always on display, both on the cover screen and on the main inner screen. So when you consider all of those things, kind of running in the background, 1 day of battery life on a 4300 milliamp hour battery is pretty darn good. I tracked my battery use on 1 day, and I had about 1 day and 5 hours of uptime and about 5 minutes and 55 seconds of screen on time with about 4% battery left. And I never enabled any type of power saving or battery saving features. So again, up to 6 hours of screen on time on a phone with a 4300 milliamp hour battery, pretty impressive if you consider all the stuff that I normally have running. But if you use your phone more heavily than I do and you manage to get through the battery, it's not really an issue topping it up because it supports up to 44 watts of Super VOOC fast charging. So I was able to get about 51% in 30 minutes of charging. And while this does come with a 67 watt charger, again, it only supports up to 44 watts of charging. So the OPPO Find N2 Flip has been a truly flagship experience so far, and it can actually do a couple of things that flagship phones can't do, like allow you to angle the screen to get that type of shot or just to consume content better. But there's one feature that I found myself really wishing that the OPPO Find N2 Flip had, and that is a wireless charger. Because I'm not really a fan of plugging and unplugging cables all the time. I'd much rather put, like a wireless charging dock on my desk while I work. There's also no official IP rating, but I have used the phone in, light drizzle and a bit of rain, and it fared well. So it is meant for, kind of water splashes, but nothing more than that. With that said, I still think that the benefits and advantages that a flip phone offer you are worth the compromises that it has to make over a traditional slab phone. And that's not something I ever thought I would say, because I came from a foldable phone and I was really eager to go back to a slab phone. It wasn't a flip, it was a foldable phone like that. And now that I've used a flip, I can really see that this makes a bit more sense. This is more of that middle ground. where a lot of consumers I think can benefit from something like this. It really opens up a world of photo opportunities. You know, the ability to do this and take a photo there, or just sit it like that, take a photo this way, rotate it like that, or like that. I mean, think about it. With a traditional slab phone, you can't get any of this type of shot variation without a stand or a tripod or a mount. And this is just baked right into this phone. There's nothing needed. Think about a time lapse. You could just sit it like this, set up your time lapse, and you're good to go. So if you're thinking about getting your first flip phone, the OPPO Find N2 Flip is an awesome place to start. You're really getting a flagship type of experience with very little compromise. And if you're really into taking photos, believe me, this opens up so much interesting shot variations that you wouldn't get in a traditional smartphone. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments down below. You know, what do you think of the OPPO Find N2 Flip? Do you view this as being an inferior or less capable phone than a traditional slab phone? Again, that was my thought initially till I actually used a flip phone, and specifically the OPPO Find N2 Flip. I really don't find that to be the case anymore, and it really has unlocked, you know, more creative opportunities when taking photos and videos for me. So does the OPPO Find N2 Flip bring enough to the table to make you seriously consider, you know, upgrading to this phone or choosing it as your first flip phone? And if it doesn't bring enough, what would you like to see in a new version to make you seriously consider a flip phone over a traditional slab phone? And as always, if you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one soon.